Hello and welcome to Daily Politics. We are reaching you live from Trust TV here in Abuja. I am Suleiman. Today we discussed renewed demand for the release of Nnamdi Kanu. Last week, Igbo leaders from across the southeast held a visit with President Muhammadu Buhari. They went to see him with one single demand. They wanted the president to unconditionally release Nnamdi Kanu, who is standing trial for treason and terrorism and stockpiling of arms and sundry other charges. The president told them that their demand is heavy, but he will consider it. Now, was the president correct to have even said he would consider it? Can the president intervene in a judicial process? What will happen? Is the federal government going to withdraw the case against Kanu? And what are the implications of that for Nigeria? Or should the president do so in the name of unity or in the interest of peace and unity as canvassed by some? Today we discuss all of these issues, and I have with me two very important guests that I'm very sure will do justice to the issue. My first guest, of course, is Dr. Hakim Baba Ahmed, who is, of course, the National Publicity Secretary of the Northern Elders Forum, NEF. My second guest is also a well-known author and civil rights activist, Dr. Chido Onuma. Thank you and welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. But before we go on, we'll take a minute and give you a round of politics and the news, as usual. Stay with us.
The Ogun State House of Assembly is immersed in a fresh crisis as former Deputy Speaker Dario Quadri alleged that his signature was forged to withdraw the sum of 50 million naira from the Assembly's bank account. In the month of March, the Assembly impeached Quadri for allegedly demanding accountability and transparency in the finances of the Assembly. Shortly after his removal, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission (EFCC) launched an investigation into the Assembly's finances following a petition allegedly written by the former Deputy Speaker. Meanwhile, former Minister of Aviation Stella Odua attended a trial on Monday in a petition by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission (EFCC) to avoid an arrest warrant being issued for her. Before the trial on Monday, Odua had failed to appear before the court 5 times. During the last sitting on July 12, Justice Inyang Eko threatened to issue a warrant of arrest if the former minister failed to appear on her next trial date. She's been arraigned on a 25-count charge alongside 4 orders. EFCC is accusing her of misappropriating 7.9 billion naira public funds while serving as a minister under former President Goodluck Jonathan. A coalition of civil society organizations, CSOs, have demanded the release of over 200 NSAS protesters still being detained in various detention facilities across the country. The CSOs that made the demand on Monday in Lagos at a press conference include New Nigerian Network, Coalition for Revolution, Take It Back Movement, and Radical Agenda Movement in the Nigerian Bar Association. The coalition noted that over 200 protesters who were arrested during the October 20, 2020 NSAS protests across the country are still being detained at various detention centers in Nigeria.
Thank you for staying with us. If you are just joining us, this is Daily Politics on Trust TV. And today we are discussing the renewed calls for the release of the leader of proscribed group IPOB, Nnamdi Kanu. So let me go straight into it. And if maybe I start with my left and then end with my right. Dr. Chido, you've been in the world of civil rights, and civil rights normally means human rights. And human rights also means rule of law. So from the rule of law perspective, what do you think this visit by Igbo leaders, led by a former parliamentarian himself, what does it mean overall to this case?
Thank you for having me, and it's great to be part of your program today.
Yes.
On the face of it, I think it was a good attempt, a nice gesture for the president to have received them. I never fail to emphasize the importance of building alliances, creating opportunities for the promotion of peace and unity and all of that. Okay. This country belongs to all of us. We have our disagreements, and I think the major problem we have in Nigeria is our inability to have a discussion about what kind of society we want to create. When we do, we talk over each other, and we've not come together as a family, accepting that sense that a nation is in a world, a family when you extrapolate it. Well, if we come from that understanding, so I think there's nothing basically wrong in the attempt to reach out to the president and hear his view. And the president said what he had to say, but there are ramifications. And maybe
so what are the ramifications for human rights perspective, from a human rights perspective?
Well, from the human
and rule of law perspective,
if we look at it, there are different ramifications. Of course, the lawyers will talk about how Nnamdi Kanu was brought back to the country, implications for, we don't know the details. But if we depend on what the lawyers are saying and some of the analysis going on, the sense you get is that it goes against all the norms of international law and politics and all of that. So that's one ramification. The fact that when he appeared in court for the first time, his lawyers didn't know that he was coming to court, and also in the early part of this process.
So from your perspective, the law is already subordinated to politics. Is that what you are saying?
In a sense.
On this case?
Maybe deliberately so, maybe not. But I think, for me, my sense is that this is more political than legal.
But Dr. Mohammed, Dr. Shido is saying that we should talk as one family and all that. But this is not a case that started last week or last month or last year. This is something that has gone quite far already. This is something that involves, the burning down of government properties, the killing of policemen, and so on. Is it not too late for talk?
Yeah. The simple question to that question is yes, it is too late, and wrong to change the course of events. Wrong from many perspectives. But let me just agree with Doctor. One of the problems of the country is our tendency to see problems in silos. The problem of Nnamdi Kanu and the East is not an Igbo problem. It's not an Eastern problem. It's a Nigerian problem. The law under which is being prosecuted is a Nigerian law. The offenses which is being accused to have, alleged to have committed, are Nigerian. If there are victims, they are Nigerians. Nnamdi Kanu is a Nigerian, even if he's also a British citizen. The judicial process affects all of us. What happens to it, or in it, or about it, affects all of us. So this tendency to say this is just an Igbo issue is wrong. If the rights of Nnamdi Kanu are breached by government or by anybody, we all stand breached. If, on the other hand, a particular favor is done to him or for him, either as a person or because a particular group puts pressure to that, we are offended to that degree. I need to emphasize this. So everybody in the country has a stake, legitimate stake, to have a say in terms of what the Igbo leaders came to ask President Buhari to do. So I think this program is as relevant to us today as it is to the market woman who lives in Oka, or a young man who lives in Owerri. That's the first question. The second one is that I think unfortunately the president, when he received this delegation, said all the right things. He's sworn to defend the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. He cannot, therefore, subvert due process and the rule of law. He cannot make concessions that will expose him and the country to greater danger. Even where options exist, they have to be weighed within the context of the law. You cannot operate outside the law, even if he has the powers to grant Nnamdi Kanu reprieve from an ongoing trial, he has to weigh that decision in the context of other consequences. This is a country facing threats from all over the place. What does this request imply for the bandits that are killing people in all parts of the country, the terrorists that are terrorizing all parts of the country?
I think, okay.
We need to situate that. What is, for me, unfortunate was these two things. This tendency to say, no, nobody else has a right to say anything about this. This is just between Igbo people and President Buhari. It isn't. It's about Nigerians and their country. The second thing is that the president himself needs to be told that every Nigerian is interested in what he does or doesn't do. And we have a legitimate interest to say our views need to be heard. The laws that Nnamdi Kanu are breaking, for which he is being prosecuted, are not Igbo laws. The lives
Buhari's laws.
Or Buhari's laws. These are Nigerian laws. And so this is a Nigerian problem. It should be addressed by Nigerians. And I represent an organization. I would have thought the best process, the best way forward would have been in the tradition that we normally do things. We speak to Ohanis and Indigo. We would, if we are in their shoes, we would look out for others.
So, Dr. Chido, the Igbo leaders also didn't go to Buhari or want to see the president because they think they wanted to break the law. They probably thought they are looking for a solution to the situation. You know, do you think that paying a night visit to the president is what will solve such a situation? And if that is the case, what happens to the case in court?
I don't think that's going to solve the solution, and I like the take of Dr. Ahmed on the fact that whatever Nnamdi Kanu is being tried for, it has to do with the nation, the concern, and so on, the implications, the ramifications. It's for Nigeria. But as I said in my opening remarks, this case is both political and legal. And of course, talking about delegates or traditional rulers, there is always a precedent. I mean, in many years ago, almost 2 decades ago, when Obasanjo was in power, we saw the governor of Kanu State then and the emir of Kanu then going to Obasanjo to plead on behalf of Mohamed Abacha. And you can compare apples and oranges, but I mean,
in treason charges.
Yeah, but
these are different things.
Yeah, but I mean, if somebody breaks,
the difference is a very significant one.
Well, it depends on how you want to look at it. Okay. I mean, an offense against the state is an offense against the state.
Some are more offensive than others. But go on.
But yes. So I just wanted to clear that, you know, in terms of the fact that there has been a precedent. So people get to do these things, not because they are saying essentially that this person hasn't committed an offense, but they're saying that perhaps there are other ways we can deal with it because of also, again, for the ramification for everybody involved. But and I would like to discuss, talk more about the political aspect of, but let's even look at the legal aspect. For me, if the government, and it's not just about the Nnamdi Kanu, the need for expeditious trial, you know, not just for him again, but that to have a legal system. So if you accuse this person of this, you make sure that the process goes very well so that people do not begin to question your motive. And then if tomorrow the courts find him guilty, people know that he's guilty of this offense. There'll probably be no gap for this kind of solicitation. Okay. So it's also important.
So perhaps because the case is not...
Yeah, it just keeps dragging. It's important for the health of our judiciary as well. To, when you say talk about justice, it's not just about justice, and justice has to be seen, you know, to be done, the process and all of that. So if you say this person has been has committed this offense and he's on trial, ensure that the process runs smoothly. There is no interference in the process. Everything, let the judiciary really be independent and handle this thing, and whatever is the outcome, people will deal with it. And if the person is found guilty, then you can come around and say, oh, okay, he's done his time. Or
because justice will have seemed to have been done.
And then perhaps they can plead for clemency or do other things. But for me, that's the major concern.
Thank you very much. Dr. Muhammad, part of the response of the president, the president said that the request is heavy, and extremely difficult. And then he said he will consider. You have been in government to the highest level, all the way to the level of former PAMSEC of the federal government. What is there to consider in this issue, both politically especially?
Well, I imagine on matters of this nature, going by my experience, the president would have been availed of advice from a wide spectrum of key stakeholders. Okay. Military people, intelligence, other arms of security. And the kind of advice he would have will range from those who might say, Mr. President, this is not a bad idea. If there is a way in which we can secure peace and some kind of stability in the East, which has been terribly damaged by the activities of IPOB and ESN, and we can reintegrate that key part of this country back into the mainstream, if releasing this man is going to be the solution, and we are guaranteed that it will be done. Okay. And he's not going to go back again and start provoking and killing all his people doing that. We should do that. That's one end of the spectrum. There will be the other end of the spectrum where presumably there will be people with the courage to say to him, Mr. President, this man, all his agents, all his boys, all his people have been killing military and policemen and prison warders. They've been burning down federal establishments. They've literally destroyed the economy of the Southeast. They have caused young people not to go to exams. They lock up the entire 5 eastern states on Mondays. This man has been, he was on bail, he ran away, he's not a new offender. This man represents an existential threat, not only to the East, but to the country. And two, Mr. President, with due respect, you may have the power under law to enter the case and stop the case, but it is improper. Okay. It's improper for many reasons. One, people remind you, you're the same president where courts in the past have granted bail to people like Ibrahim Azazagi and somebody. So courts of law have said release these people on bail, and you haven't done so. And now they are being asked to simply put an end to an ongoing trial. So there would have been a very, you asked me how this kind of thing within government would have been done. Yes. This would have been the process that I would be familiar with. And the president will choose what advice to. But if the president chooses to say all the right things, this is heavy. Heavy meaning I cannot do what the Constitution doesn't allow me to do. To abort an ongoing trial, interfere with the judicial process, and remind the elders that this is not a new man before the courts. He's done this and he's done this. And what puts all these things together, and he makes a compelling reason why he has no right or obligation to grant that request. And then he goes back and spoils his case. He says, still, I'll look into it. And look at what's been happening in the last 2 days. There are a lot of people who are jumping up and down saying, the president said he will consider it, consider it. What is he going to consider? Whether he should break the same law that he says he has no right to break? Whether he should exercise powers that he may have but will cause more damage to the country? Okay. So that is where the president went wrong. And the president needs to be reminded that it doesn't matter how his position is interpreted. The bottom line is that he's accountable to all Nigerians, not just to a handful of people. And he would open the doors to more serious challenges to the stability and the security. I think
that's an important dimension, whether or not any action that follows this, particularly if the president looks to it favorably, what damage it could do in other cases that may not be exactly the same as in Nnamdi's, but have similar situations. But we'll come to that in a bit. Dr. Chido, the leaders the Igbo leaders who visited the president, they came under the group known as highly respected Igbo greats, in quote, rather than, say, for example, a coalition of the state legislators of the 5 eastern states. These ones have elected mandates, or the governors, or something like that. How does that work out, since it is a non-governmental organization? What mandate and what legitimacy do they have even to table such a request to the president?
I think
and how can they speak on behalf of all Igbos?
Well, my sense is, considering the caliber of people, their ages and all of that, there is a sense in which you get that this supersedes whatever it is that is already on the ground, even the elected officials of state. So it depends on how you want to view it. And I think for me, the focus should be more on the message rather than the messenger.
Okay.
And this same message could have been conveyed by anybody, maybe Igbos or citizens from the southeast who are in the National Assembly, or state governors, and so on. So the focus really should be on the message. And Dr. Babame talked about what the president said to spoil his case, and the president hasn't come out to tell us that when he says he's going to consider it, what he intends to do, or what he wants to do. My sense is that, looking at the different dimensions, the ramifications, which is so well spelled out in this particular case, what it means if this case is allowed to continue. Well, how does it affect the situation in the southeast? How does it then affect the situation in the rest of the country? Because we are not just dealing with the Nnamdi Kanu's case. The Sunday Igboho case is also pending. And then if he doesn't do that, if he says, okay, I want to swing this way, what is the implications for people who have also been accused of all kinds of things? At the end of the day, it's almost tail you win, head, tail you lose, head you
either
lose.
Way you lose.
Either way you lose. So for us as a people,
as a society,
and the president whose term is gradually coming to an end, what kind of legacy does he want to leave? This thing happened under his watch. I mean, the whole idea of the kind of secessionist tendencies or movements didn't start with him, but it's really escalated in the last 6 years, leading to the situation we found ourselves now. So does he bear part of the responsibility? Therefore, does he have a responsibility to try to find some kind of solution, whether stopgap or not?
Isn't the legal process a solution?
No, but then, that's why I say this case is more political than legal. And the president is really not, and I don't want to be accused of not choosing my words in terms of the legal situation, because at the end of the day, and he talked about whether it's the El Zazaki case, where there have been cases in the past when the judiciary had ordered the release of people, and the executive...
I have to stop you now to bring in Dr. Mohammed. This whole idea that the president there can be even a political solution to the IPOB and Nnamdi Kanu's case, where does it stand with previous cases? For example, the banditry going on in the north. A lot of people have suggested that it is even possible to find a political solution to it, or to dialogue with the bandits, to reach in the interest of peace,
throughout the country, this was condemned, you know, and even those who were involved were, and that was not the first time. The same was during the case of Boko Haram. People, you know, talked about amnesty, that maybe there is need to settle down. After all, Boko Haram also started with grievance, you know, got violent following grievance and things like that. So where does all these things stand with these issues? Are they the same? Are they different? And do we put them all together in the same basket and say, okay, let's deal with these issues politically once and for all?
Well, one way of answering this is deal with the case that is before you. You can't put all these cases together and deal with them, and you can't put one on hold unless you also find a parallel. Society is dynamic. Some cases, some breaches mature when you get.
Yes.
When you need them, some run away from you. We've been fighting Boko Haram for 12 years.
Yes.
The first breach, first major breach, was not done by Boko Haram. It was done by Nigerian policemen who shot Muhammad Yusuf in broad daylight after the military interrogated him. That was what triggered the Boko Haram thing. I think what is important here is to acknowledge the fact that all over the country you have challenges. If you have to wait until you have balance in the manner in which you deal with all these challenges, the country will sink under problems. Let's not take our eyes off the ball. What is before us is a request before the president by elders from one part of the country asking him to stop the trial of Nnamdi Kanu and free him. That's what is before us.
Yes.
In the meantime, there are a lot of people who are saying, well, what about the bandits? Gumi says these people are also, they need to be free, they need to be granted amnesty, they need to be rehabilitated, they need to be schools, they need this. There's a huge outcry against the manner in which repentant Boko Haram people are being treated.
Yes.
There's Sunday Igboho people are saying, but why are you harassing this man? He's living in a foreign country. So what we need to do is to be focused on what we have. There are problems. If you are going to now start drawing parallels, you won't solve this problem.
Okay.
Is the judicial process the only way in which we can establish whether Kanu was guilty or not of the charges? If it is so, then the judicial process should be allowed to exhaust itself. I agree with the doctor. It is important in this particular instance, and you can tinker with the process. Try this man as quickly as it is possible. Try him openly and as fairly, and let the world see
that it is open and fair.
That it is open and it is fair. And if he is found guilty, he should pay the price for what he's done. That's important. In the meantime, now we have a pressure that is building on the president to find people who are also making our lives miserable. Bandits, criminals, kidnappers, Boko Haram people, all those people who are doing that. It's the same. We need a more energetic approach to get these people. But you have to deal with the case that is before you. And the case before us now is whether the president should set and put an end to a process that he may have the powers to. But he has no right to do that.
Okay.
He should not do that. He should not listen to this argument. And the people who came to ask him to release Kanu, unfortunately, highly respected people. Highly respected people. Not one of them is in a position to stop Kanu from doing anything if he goes now.
That's the next place. What happens even, say, hypothetically? We cannot prejudge the president. We cannot get ahead of him. What happens even if he decides, okay, I acquiesce or I accent to your demands, and decides to put in motion how Nnamdi Kanu will be released unconditionally as demanded, you know. So what will happen after that? Either from a governmental perspective, but more significantly from a popular perspective. Would it make Kanu a hero and therefore go and do worse? Or what would it mean? Would it stop the agitations for Biafra? Or would it even stop networks like the Eastern Nigeria networks that are causing a lot of the security breaches in the southeast? But before we come into all these discussions, we'll be taking a minute or two to go on a break. When we come back, we continue. Stay with us.
Get latest updates on current topical issues and breaking news by downloading the Trust TV mobile app on your Android devices. Go online, click Google Play Store, search Trust TV, install the app, and get doses of unfiltered information on happenings all over the world in your pocket. Trust TV, documenting the Nigerian story.
Welcome back. This is Daily Politics on Trust TV. If you are just joining us, you can also follow us on our social media handles on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. We were discussing, whether or not the renewed calls about releasing Nnamdi Kanu. I started with you the first time. I would also start with you again so that I can end with Dr. Baba Ahmed. So even if we get to the point where Nnamdi Kanu is going to be released, and the ramifications for that to other situations and conflicts in the country have well been dealt with by the two of you. Now, how is that even going to look like? Beyond the president just withdrawing the case. And would that end what IPOB has now become?
It's hard to tell, but before I answer your question, I'll go back to what Dr. Ahmed said, and
yes,
for us not to draw parallels. And I don't know how helpful that would be in doing the analysis here. He talked about what led to Boko Haram, the killing of Mohammed Yusuf. There must, of course, be, if you ask the people of IPOB and Nnamdi Kanu, they have their own grievances, what led to. So, and of course, this crisis did not start with Nnamdi Kanu. You're dealing with a region that 51 years ago we came out of a civil war. The same grievances, people. There are a lot of people, millions of people really, from that part of the country for whom the talk of no victor, no vanquish doesn't mean much to them. The check of reconciliation, one Nigeria, for them is a dot check. They don't feel so. That's why I keep saying that in as much as it's important to look at the legal ramification of all of this, and I would want this thing to even strengthen for the sake of our judiciary, to have this process run its course and see what happens. And that's not to say, of course, the president has the power. Whatever the judiciary does, would have seen that justice has been done. The president can still come and say, look, for the sake of this and that, I'm doing this and this and this. But the point I want to make in reference to your question is, if Nnamdi Kanu is out of the picture today, would that stop this? If Nnamdi Kanu is released today, conditionally or unconditionally, would that stop the agitation? That, for me, is the major issue. I don't see this as an Nnamdi Kanu problem. I see it as a problem of people from that part of the, but also a larger Nigerian problem. So how do we deal, if you release Nnamdi Kanu today, how does it help the situation, the agitation, and so on? But I think the president, in also saying that he will look into it, if they are going to release Nnamdi Kanu unconditionally, I mean, the government knows what to do, in the sense that they are going to have some agreement and understanding that we are releasing you because of this.
But he's proven that he cannot do that. He's jumped bail. No, bail is also a sort of agreement.
The condition for jumping bail, he didn't just flee the country. They attacked, there was an attack in his country home that led to him going out of the country. So it wasn't, in a sense, just to say he deliberately, maybe some things may have happened that led the military to attack, but there was an attack on his home that it was on the basis of that's what we know.
He said there was an attack. That's different thing from there was an attack.
Yeah, there was an attack. The papers reported it. People were killed in that attack, and the sense we got was that they anticipated that they were planning something and so on. But you know, let's even leave that. Okay.
Let me bring Dr. in. Dr. Chido has actually written quite a number of books about Nigeria and about togetherness in Nigeria. One of them is the one that he called "We Are All Biafrans."
Yeah.
You know, so we're all Biafrans, and we have one part of the country, or at least a group, IPOB, you know, representing or maybe even legitimate grievances that people have in that part. So if we're all Biafrans now, because all of us have one or other grievances against the federal state, all of us have one or other issues that we would wish were better for us. All of us feel marginalized in one way or another. So if that be the case, how then is the IPOB agitation more legitimate than any other in the country?
Well, this is interesting. I participated in a symposium 3 years ago.
Yes.
And I presented a paper, and it was called "I'm Biafran."
Okay.
And Biafra represents, it's another word for a grievance.
Yes.
And genuinely, the Southeast, like many parts of the country, is just bursting at the seams with grievances. Young people who have severe disconnection from history, not just the Southeast. Young Nigerians have absolutely no idea about the history of this country.
Absolutely.
They don't know what we went through as a nation. They don't know what it took to keep this country, to bring it to where it is. They don't give a damn about the sacrifices that were made. They don't want to know about who was right and who was wrong. They hear about the Civil War as if it was just tales. They believe that they were badly treated during a war where 1 million or so Nigerians. They were Nigerians even then. The eastern part of the country was Nigeria.
Yes.
We lost millions of people, including hundreds of thousands from other parts of the country who were fighting there. And if you keep going back on this grievances thing, the young people get fed bits and pieces of the wrong of history, and it becomes the staple that you build, and you create this keg of powder where everything about the past is about how badly the Igbo is treated, how badly the Igbo is treated, how badly the Igbo. And cumulatively, you then start referring to the comment supposedly made by the president that the South is giving only 5% of the votes, and how they are marginalized. There is nobody in the top 10 of the military that is in the and we don't want to be part of this country. So they take an incident in the historical spectrum of Nigeria, and it becomes a default. Thousands, millions of young people in the Southeast, like millions of young people in the North, in the Southwest, are suffering because the economy has collapsed. It's collapsed over their head. Artisans, traders, and the Igbo don't want to be patronizing. Everybody has known how the Igbo doesn't wait, and he doesn't rely on government contract. He works hard. He earns his own living. Now, when they don't, there is no chance to do that. Who do you blame? There's unbelievable level of corruption in governments in the Southeast. Nobody talks about these things. The government has absolutely there is no impact by the 5 governments, state governments. Who's supposed to be held responsible for an intolerable level of poverty and backwardness in the Southeast? Infrastructure has collapsed. So IPOB is an omnibus for all the grievances of young people in the Southeast. Now, this is the point is that they are just part of the queue. But poor governance, cumulative failures of government to deal with the young people, they give young people hope, connect them with the history, teach them history for goodness sake. Tell them the reality about what Nigeria is. Tell young people how we came to be, the good, the bad, and the ugly. You must teach young Nigerians history. what we did right, what we did wrong, where we ended up. We're all guilty of failing to do that. And today what you have is massive disconnect. There are people, there are young Fulani in the bush with AK-47s who just don't, half the time, 90% of the time, they are in drugs. They don't even know how they end up there. All they know is that they're involved in
but they too have grievances. They say that their cattle have been rustled, their livelihoods have been torn away from them, and then hence where we are.
And when you listen to them,
yes,
and when you listen, and Nigeria should listen,
that they have been neglected, probably even more neglected than any other group of Nigerians, and profiled and all that. Yes,
and we should listen to young people, and not just Igbo or Fulani. We should listen to young people. If this country is bleeding, it is bleeding because we have failed to educate our young to understand why this country is on its knees, and that not one group should be held responsible for what it is. My generation has failed substantially in terms of sustaining what ought to have been an economy that today should be one of the best in the world.
Yes.
That is the simple, honest truth. Our politics is not delivering the goods. Our economy is in the doldrums, and everybody is paying the price. But young people are paying the bigger price. So there's nothing special, there's nothing unique about this young Easterners, young people, young Nigerians in the Southeast. And Kanu does not represent the solution to those grievances. He exploits these weaknesses, he exploits these grievances, and creates the facade, very damaging facade, that if we are in Biafra, all these problems will disappear, and the streets will be flowing with milk and honey, and the Igbo will become all nice, and the leaders will suddenly transform into good leaders, and the government will be perfect human beings. These kind of lies have been fed into people's head, and there are people who genuinely believe that actually Biafra is a solution for all the problems of the East. That is very dangerous, and it must be stopped. The way to stop it is to bring the weight of the government to do two things. The rule of law must be reinforced. You cannot just simply cede a part of the country on the grounds that people are too angry there to support the government. It doesn't matter. What you do, you must reintegrate the East. That's the first one. The second one, you must improve the quality of leadership in the Southeast. It's literally running away. Giving room for IPOP to do what it wants. Allowing young people to be fed with all sorts of nonsense. I'm sorry, but so actually nonsense. That's the simple, honest truth. And we've created monsters.
Dr. Chido, Dr. Baba Ahmed has read so many issues, particularly the quality of leadership in the Southeast, at the local level, at the states level, an issue that many have said in relation even to northern Nigeria, but also other parts of the country. To what extent does that drive the agitations for Biafra, one? And second, does that, even if you have that, should that lead to violence? And the use of violence?
Yeah, there is a way in which one reinforces the other. And there is a way in which the issue of bad leadership reinforces the anarchy and violence that is going on. So he talked about when you don't educate your young people, they have no sense of history. They have no understanding of what it means to cohabit and live in peace and unity. For them, I was listening to Sheun Kuti the other day, and was saying, there's this video of him saying, and he said something very profound.
He's always saying profound things, yes.
He said, you don't build library for us, and you are claiming that we're always on social media, we're lazy. And I thought, this resonates with me. Many years ago, I was at Harvard University. I went for a conference at the Harvard Law School. And I worked, my background is in communication, media and information literacy, so I gave some talk around digital literacy for young people. And they shared, the organizers of this event shared this material. I had to bring it home, that Benin Republic has more public libraries than Nigeria. When I came home and I went to one newspaper in Nigeria and I was having this conversation in the newsroom, and the reporters there were like, oh no, it's not possible. And I said, how many public libraries do we have in Abuja? I grew up in Lagos. I used to hide in public libraries to just get away from doing household chores. You go to Lagos today, all those libraries are collapsed, and you say your young people don't read, they don't know anything. You don't provide opportunities. So the opportunities you provide for them, they are taking advantage of those opportunities to do all the crazy stuff.
But shouldn't people come out to say, okay, even if you have grievances, this is not the way to go about it?
When
with Nnamdi Kanu and IPOB,
it's good. We can sit here and pontificate and moralize about it. You're dealing with human beings, young people who do not know their left from their right. Millions of them high on a cocktail of the most dangerous drugs in the world. They can't think clearly. So, and I'm surprised, just as Babangida said many years ago, unfortunately he was the one in charge. I'm surprised that things haven't gotten worse than it is today. You wake up in the morning, you read tens of text messages, people asking you for 2,000 naira. These are some of them university graduates, friends and all kinds of things, hospital bills and everything. This situation is really bad, and I agree completely. We have to hold our leaders responsible for this mess, more so the leaders in the Southeast. And one of the things I said during the election of November 6th, I said perhaps these groups that are doing all of this, if they say, let's, be politically conscious, I say, everybody come out and vote. Vote for whoever you want. Whoever wins this election, every month or every quarter, we want to see the revenue you get from the federal government. We want to see. I was talking to a friend of mine in the US, a journalist. I said, oh, you mentioned this thing too late. We should have written an essay around this thing. Mention. And they give mandate. This is what we are giving you, whoever becomes governor of this state. Every quarter, you tell us how much you receive from the federal government. People will sit up.
Thank you. We've just about come to the very final question. So I'm going to put that to you, Dr. Bao. Some people are saying that it's even possible for leaders from the Southeast to even visit the president to make a demand for unconditional release of Nnamdi Kanu, that leaders from other parts of the country, maybe the Southwest or Northern Nigeria in particular, will find it even difficult to walk up to the president in public and say, okay, we want this, we want a negotiated settlement to the bloodletting in the region. Why is that?
I suspect because maybe we know the president a little bit more than leaders in the Southeast. And I have to remind you again, there are all types of leaders. The ones who really have responsibility to help in maintaining law and order and security, the governors, the senators. We're not in that delegation. You have to ask yourself why. There are reasons. Are they culpable? Are they part of the problem? They can't be part of the solution? These elders and leaders, we like to think that we are very important and that we can sway the president one way or the other. The president played a political game. He did the right thing listening to elders from the Southeast. As I said, he did all the right things until the last moment when he should have stood firm and say, I cannot breach the judicial process. I may have the powers, but it's inappropriate for me to apply them. But look, there's something serious and I think particularly unique about the Southeast.
There's about 30 seconds, sir.
Governor Soludo won an election in Anambra State with about 2 or 3% of the votes from the total population. 2 or 3% of the entire citizens of Anambra voted for him. That should tell you that there's something fundamentally wrong about the relationship between the citizen and the state in the Southeast. This is a very good fertile ground for sociologists and political scientists and human rights people to ask, something is wrong. So if you need to rebuild this country, you have to rebuild it using building blocks. Of all the areas that we need to do, the Southeast is special, it's important. But yielding to people like Kanu is the very wrong block to use. Because the moment you start building with people like Kanu, you don't address the real problem, and you just simply compound the problem. Something seriously wrong with in the Southeast, like in most parts of the country. But Kanu is part of that problem. He is not the solution. His freedom is not the solution. And the president will be doing the wrong thing if he lets Kanu go.
Thank you very much. I think yielding to Nnamdi Kanu will be wrong, according to Dr. Baba Ahmed. And this is where we come to the very final minutes of this program. Thank you for staying with us, and we hope that you will join us again one day. And thank you once again, gentlemen, for coming on our show. Thank you for staying with us, our viewers. See you once again tomorrow for another edition of Daily Politics on Trust TV. I am your regular host, Suleiman Suleiman.